Some people, it seems, are just born to the study of geography or discover it at an early age, and from then on, geography leads them in their explorations around the world. Others of us have to do things a little backwards, where our stumbling around the world ultimately leads us to the study of geography. I'm Mark Miller. I'm a professor of geography at the University of Southern Mississippi, and this is the story of how international education and geography have come together for me in a powerful way in my career and in my life. As I was thinking about a university education way back when, I was very interested in international development. I was especially interested in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. The country of Mali particularly fascinated me. And so I ended up majoring in agriculture at the University of Maryland. It seemed like an appropriate direction to go for that pursuit. I didn't know exactly where I would go from there, and one day a good friend of mine was on his way to go see a Peace Corps recruiter and wanted me to come along. We left that meeting with the Peace Corps recruiter with my friend not particularly interested in the Peace Corps anymore, and I was keenly interested in it. So I applied for the Peace Corps. I was accepted. They offered me two positions. One was teaching at an agricultural college in Thailand, which position didn't sound very appealing to me. And the other was as an agricultural advisor in the country of Belize. Honestly, I did not know where the country of Belize was at the time. I can still remember reaching over from the telephone to my parents' encyclopedia, flipping through it while I'm trying to discuss things casually. I thought Belize sounded like a very cool, interesting country. I thought the assignment sounded interesting, so I took it there on the spot. One of those decisive points in a young person's life where I have never set foot on the continent of Africa in my life, and I have built a career out of Latin America and the Caribbean, and both of which Belize finds itself firmly planted. I worked as an agricultural advisor in Belize. I'm not sure I was very good at it, but I certainly enjoyed the experience. I worked in the southern part of the country, lived with Mayan Indian population, worked with them predominantly, made a lot of friends, learned a tremendous amount. And one of the things I learned was I really wasn't that keen on spending the rest of my career walking around rice paddies. I wanted to maybe move up a notch in the field of international development. I had heard a good bit about the Thunderbird School, the American Graduate School of International Management. And I applied, I was accepted there in pursuit of more study dealing with international development administration. While I was there, I had the opportunity to study abroad for a summer in Guadalajara, Mexico, which was a wonderful experience. I didn't exactly know what I was doing, which sometimes can lead to good results. I found a boarding house in the middle of downtown Guadalajara. It was packed with other boarders, some of them Mexican, some of them Salvadorans, some of them I just don't know. And about on any given night, we would I'd either get some homework done or not. Somebody would come along and we'd stay up at night talking. I'd go to the bar. Somebody would want to get in an argument with me, but I certainly learned a lot more Latin America and learned a lot more Spanish in the process. Finished up my degree at the Thunderbird School and was hired by the NGO, Catholic Relief Services, for a position in Guatemala. This was in the mid-1980s, not a pretty situation for Guatemala in the midst of their civil war. I didn't have a chance to do a lot of development work. It was mostly war relief and earthquake relief and relief from any number of different problems that Guatemala was experiencing. Once again, a tremendous learning experience and partly a self-learning experience, as these things often are. What I learned was that there were so many more questions than I had answers for when it came to Guatemala in particular, or the developing world in general. One of the bigger issues was there was a huge migration of population exacerbated by the war from the countryside into towns and especially into Guatemala City, and none of us really had any idea how to work with them in an effective manner. I looked at a lot of different doctoral programs, hoping to study more about some of these issues. And the best response I received was from the Department of Geography and Regional Development at the University of Arizona. I flew up there, interviewed with the folks. I was more impressed, and entered into their doctoral program after about 1.5 years in Guatemala. And I've been a geographer and a proud geographer ever since. I did my research work for my dissertation in studying the growth and planning for the Mexico City metropolis. It was far too big a topic to have bitten off, as I realize in retrospect, but it was a fascinating topic. I was able to get a Tinker grant that helped me get down to Mexico City a couple times for some extended research opportunities. My professor, Leigh Gibson, provided me with a lot of his personal contacts down there. A fascinating experience. I learned a lot. It helped me to get my next job, which was at the University of Southern Mississippi, which had a program similar to the one at University of Arizona in many ways. It had large focus on planning and economic development and a large international dimension to it. I went there, and I've been there ever since. As I'm narrating this now, it's been about 22 years with lots and lots of opportunities. One of the first was the university already had a program in Jamaica, and I participated in that, teaching the geography of the Caribbean, and soon became director of the program and did that for probably about 15 years, in which we would bring down, I would guess, on average 40 to 50 students every year in about a half a dozen different disciplines, in which the disciplines would often interact, lots of field experiences. Anybody I think in international education will attest, you also continuously find new ways to screw up and new things that you can learn from. And I think we did run a good program there for a long time, and it continues to this day in other hands. That led me to a program in Cuba. It was an unusual program at that time. I was led to it through interest in experience that I had and research work that I had in Cuba already. Also, the university had a good friend in Spain with whom we were connecting on the possibility of some study abroad programs in that country. It turned out that he had traveled to Cuba extensively, made very good contact with the University of Havana. And so a lot of these things snowball, that if you're persistent with it, stick with it, follow a line in which you're focusing your international interests, a lot of things can fall into place. We had good contacts. We developed more. I directed a study abroad program in Cuba probably at least once a year for about 10 years. A smaller program, typically maybe 20, 25 students at a time. And it's an intense experience. I have never been anywhere quite like Cuba. I have had some very close friends there. It's been productive for my research. And I think it's been an intensive learning experience for all of my students who have been there as well. I've been associated with study abroad programs. We did a very brief one in country of Belize again. We have been involved with study abroad and semester abroad programs in England, in Spain, in France. I have scoped them out in South America, the country of Chile and Peru. I have looked for other opportunities in Asia, including Singapore and Hong Kong. Because of various life and research circumstances, I've slowed down my travels a good bit, especially after Katrina. Hurricane Katrina, I focused more of my work here in Mississippi and the Gulf South. And I hope to continue that. It's pretty hard, though, for a geography hand to completely suppress an interest in the world at large, although there are so many fascinating things right here at our doorstep all around us. I had another opportunity in 2010, a grant from the Canadian government, in which I proposed to study the relatively new territory of Nunavut in Arctic Canada. I was particularly interested in their efforts to develop a relatively low-income region, in some ways, ironically, similar to my home state of Mississippi. So I had an extraordinary opportunity to travel there and learn more about, for Latin Americanist and Caribbeanist, a very, very foreign location. I've returned to Cuba again, also in 2010, to catch up with some of my friends and research associates, and more things fall into place there, and I hope to continue some of my research work associated with that country. But the world is a big, fascinating place, and there's no discipline in the world, I believe, that articulates better with international experience than the study of geography, and vice versa. No matter from which direction you may stumble into it.